Good afternoon, everybody. Danny Ventresca, number 10 for our Renegade podcast. I'm very excited, actually. Good friend of a friend who technically didn't remember at first. Jen Yips with us today. One of my very best friends, actually my best friend in life, John Meyer, uh, recommended Jen to us to kind of help us understand the marketplace that we deal with a little bit better. And before I kind of get into the meat and bones of what we're gonna talk about, I just wanted to let Jen introduce herself and say hello. Kind of, if you wouldn't mind, Jen, tell everybody about your background a little bit because it's pretty awesome in the things that you've done. I know that you're a consultant now, and you own your own firm now, right?
Yeah, I'm a army of one, so to speak. So yeah, I'm out there doing my own thing. Yeah.
Right. But prior though, you worked with John both at Maxim. Did you work with him at Panasonic as well, or just at Maxim?
Just at Maxim, we've crossed paths on the media side, and just to give a little background about where I come from, I kind of grew up on the version one of ad tech. One of my first and earliest jobs was at DoubleClick, which is an ad serving technology that is astonishingly still used today. It's kind of the gold standard, which is kind of crazy. But I stayed on the media side, and I always had like a one foot on the product side and tech, and then another foot on the business side. So it's sort of a how do we create cool and exciting products that are engaging for both the audience and the customer, as well as revenue generating for the publisher and the content creator. So yeah, I spent some time on the tech side, moved into the publisher side,
What do
where
you
I
like
crossed
better?
paths with John.
What do you like better?
I don't know which I like better because I'll say this: I need to be challenged, and I like learning new things. And sometimes in the ad tech space, it's hard to see new and innovative things happening because there's only so much that can happen. But we're kind of at this point now where things are going to change a lot, and we could get into that later. It's a long way of saying I like doing a lot of different things and just finding the opportunities and the projects that are like super meaty, super interesting. If it's sort of like same old stuff over and over, I'm not feeling that.
Well, that's the thing with the allure is I remember my brother tried to bust into marketing, and when he first got out of college, I think everybody aspires to be, branding the company, right? We all watch commercials and say, "Oh my God, that's like the worst commercial I've ever seen. I could do so much better than that," from an advertising standpoint. And we just like can't wrap our hands around how someone's getting paid to market that. Like, that was your idea? You're getting paid for that? Are you for real? So there's kind of a glamour or allure to the marketing space. We all kind of like, I love it when I get involved with our marketing team here at Renegade, and it's ultimately why I wanted you to come on, was because I wanted to kind of explore it a little bit more in depth so that people can understand the trends and stuff that are going on now. It's a struggle of ours, and our whole industry is struggling with it right now because so much of what we do as an industry is just creating awareness, right? And I think that's kind of true with anything you're selling, right? You need to create that awareness so that people are going to grab it and do it in a way that people will gravitate to you. But so much has changed. For us, it's twofold, and I think probably for you and a lot of what we're talking about today, it's twofold, right? For us, it's not only is the medium in which that we're communicating to people changing, right? Everything's evolving, and even if it's not changing, it's just there's been such a crazy evolution, but as well, who, and that seems to be the point that we're all struggling with. I don't care what you do in business, we're all struggling. The who is so hard because they're not they're not the same type of people that we were, right? That consumer that's kind of the generation or two generations behind us, they're totally different people. They communicate different, and even inside of that communication, it's less. There's less emotion, right? So how do we create emotion where there is none, right? How do we create passion
Yeah.
for what I'm selling when they don't have passion towards anything? It seems like, you know what I mean? What they're
Yeah.
passionate about is making things easy. It seems like, right? Automation and stuff like that. But we are
Right.
human, and there's a human element to what we do. So, and along those lines, that's really why I wanted you here, and why John recommended you, was to kind of talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing from a not necessarily even trends, but like where we were versus where we are now, kind of like past and present. And let's get into the future a little bit afterwards. But tell me a little bit about like what your transition so far has been like in this stuff.
Sure. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of why I've stayed in marketing. And a lot of what people think marketing is like ad campaigns, right? Like, oh, you're a marketer, you come up with what I see in the Super Bowl ads or what I might see. I mean, print, I don't know where print is going these days, but you're creating what the print ads that I might see in a magazine, which, that's certainly the case. And it's sort of a evolving form factor is what I think is super interesting. But it comes back down to knowing your customer and then kind of becoming a behaviorist in a lot of ways. Like, hey, who are the people that I want to reach? And I'm not sure if you've watched the television show Mad Men.
Oh, of
But
course.
oh, okay,
First,
so
first two seasons of that were so good. I mean, I binged them hard. Those first. Sorry, I'm very good
no,
by the
no
way
worries.
at digressing. And how romantic was it too? I mean, the idea of having a bar inside of your office. I want a bar. I mean, technically, I work at home, so I have a bar inside of my office now. But why are we not allowed to drink bourbon at work anymore? I feel like that should be totally allowed. Sorry, I
Yeah,
digress.
no, I mean, up until, during my time on the media side, even on the publisher side, that was common. There was
Yeah.
always a bar inside the building in multiple places. I will not say where and when. But and I have to say, I was in the industry so deep. I did not watch Mad Men for like 3 years until after it had finished because it became so or I became so entrenched in the industry, and it's a lot. And I think that's because you are constantly striving and trying to understand who people are, how to reach them, how to build a relationship. And I was like, man, after I saw the first episode, I was like, I can't watch this. I have a little bit of PTSD. I need a little time away before I go watch it. But there's
Oh,
this
and
iconic.
Draper's character, I'm sure, didn't help that stress level.
No, I mean, yeah,
Because that's all
talk
he was trying
about
to do was get
archetype.
inside of the head, right? Like, all
Yeah,
constantly, well, not just smoking a cigarette. Who's smoking a cigarette? Why are they smoking a cigarette? Right?
totally. That there's an iconic scene in the show, and it struck me, and it was actually what pulled me in to keep on watching because that is the art and science of marketing. The pitch he was doing for Kodak, where he was talking about the memories that people want to come back to. They want to revisit them. And it's not just about selling whatever the Kodak product was, but it's about re engaging with that memory and triggering that feeling in the target customer and ultimately compelling them to go out to a store and make the investment in a new product that they can sort of drive those emotions home. And I think that's what struck me particularly about the show and about this industry in general is not just coming up with exciting and cool ad ideas. That's not even that's the end product after maybe 18 months to 2 years of learning who your customer is. Where do they spend their time? What do they like to do? What are the emotions that they go through as they're making purchase decisions? Whether it's like, buying sneakers versus buying home furnishings versus buying a home. There is some kind of emotional component to that, as well as some cognitive aspect, and then tying those two things together to generate a behavior. Come and consider my product and then choose us because we're the right fit based on what you're feeling and what you know about the facts on your buying decision. So all of that together, I think combined make up the whole of marketing. It's not just that ad campaign. A lot of different kinds of research went into understanding how to create that campaign. And it's really about understanding the consumer.
Well, from our side, it's twofold, too, because there's so much of what you're saying is so. Uh, we deal with so much on a day-to-day basis, because we're not only are we trying to engage the consumer with our product, right? And insurance is wildly boring, right? We had this conversation when we were talking about kind of like what we wanted to talk about, right? Like if I'm just talking about insurance on this podcast, I'm dead in the water, right? If we were to just market insurance, we're dead in the water. No one's going to want to buy from us because insurance is fun, right? It's not fun. So it's that emotion
Right.
that we have to trigger. And for us, not only do we need to trigger it for the consumer, but we're also recruiting agents. What we I like to I came up with our own slogan, which the company is not using officially, but I say that's what we do. It's I don't know that anybody, actually you might know better than I if anybody's using that's what we do, but right, I haven't heard
I
it, but
don't think so.
doesn't it sound like something though? It sounds like I feel like someone's saying something similar to
You're
that.
onto something
I'm
there.
on to something, right? But that's what we
Yeah.
do. And that's something that I've come up with to try to capture the emotion from our agents that we're recruiting, is saying
Mhm.
that's what we do. And what we're doing is we're highlighting the problems that are triggering emotional response in their agencies, whether it's staffing or high overheads or whatever it might be. We're trying to create things that are going to trigger, right? Which is what you're talking about. We're creating triggers inside of people, drawing that emotion out, and then redirecting that emotion towards our product, right? In the
Yes.
best way that we can.
Yes.
But it's again, it's so much more wildly complicated than that when you really dig in. I'm just kind of brushing the surface with this new company. Again, I'm just sitting there at the Super Bowl, like you said, going, "Ah, yeah, this commercial sucks. I could do so much better." And that, like, I thought that's all it was, right? It was just coming up with a good idea, and you're like the best guy ever in Super Bowl commercials, but you're not.
No,
So
I think one of the best exercises, someone who's remotely interested in marketing and how it's really done from like soup to nuts, is to actually work backwards from a Super Bowl commercial and deconstruct how that was created. Because I guarantee you that commercial, it was shot with a production company, there was a creative agency involved, there's PR agencies involved, and then before that happens, there's concepting, and then before that happens, there's like strategy about who our customers are, the products that we want to promote, how do we want to reach them, what are our sales goals and revenue goals, and does this execution make sense with it? Is Super Bowl even the right investment for reaching this audience? And then even going back from there, like I guarantee, like the biggest brands, especially those who have advertised on the Super Bowl, I would say 80% of them have come up with a strategy to execution that took 2 years. 2 years.
try
Yeah.
so well, here's the thing. So because this is our struggle, right? How on God's green earth are you able to come up with that strategy 2 years in advance? You don't know what the marketplace is going to look like 2 years down the road. You could have spent that prior 2 years. You spent $1 million for a 30-second spot, and it literally falls flat because everybody you were trying to reach is like dead already, or like, you know what I mean, or isn't buying that anymore at all. It's no longer the hot thing. Like, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where things are really getting interesting these days. I mean, the hot buzzword is, our data, big data, which
For
is,
everybody, right?
both. Yeah, I mean, everybody needs a data strategy these days, including the likes of like of Budweiser and Coca-Cola, who, I mean, they've had data strategies for decades. That's why
Right.
they are where they are. But I would say data is the big thing, and then machine learning, or, so the buzzword out there is AI, which after working with data scientists, I know that's kind of like not the right technical term, but
Well, do me a favor and explain that a little bit, because I think everybody who's listening to this right now, when it comes to artificial intelligence and its kind of practical application that we're all seeing now in all facets of our life, is misunderstood, right? Everybody associates it with the science fiction film, right? It's a plastic, fake looking human that can give human responses. Like, that's AI. They don't realize that it's
Mhm.
literally embedded virtually in everything that we're doing nowadays.
Totally, totally. So, I mean, I'm no data scientist myself. I can only sort of wax philosophical on what
Well,
I
that's what I
think
want from
the
you. I want the
distinction
waxing
is.
of the philosophical.
Yeah. So I would say that on the ML front, it's really taking as much data that you have at your disposal and coming up with prediction models that are constantly in a learning mode, but they have to be trained. And how those models are trained are up to the developers who have hands on the keyboard, right? So, it depends on how you're looking at the world and how you, I mean, it's just like a coach in real life. How am I going to train this athlete? And it's super dependent on raw talent and your tools. It's no different, really, like philosophically, super high
Right.
level. I know the
Oh yeah,
data
which
scientists out
well,
there are
well,
going
let's
to,
be honest. Most of the most people listening to this are insurance agents, and we're really good at selling things. So
yeah,
we want the philosophical. We pay people to do the other things for us.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
We just need to
And then,
understand the high level, right?
gotcha, gotcha. Then on the AI front, to me, the distinction is that now the intelligence is able to determine for itself what it needs to learn, how it needs to learn, and then how it adjusts its models moving forward. We're not there yet. I just rewatched Ex Machina that like last week. No, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
I mean, somebody probably is, but for the general public and general markets, we're not there yet.
Right, right, right. Well, and speaking of the general market too, in the marketplace, what are you seeing? And broadly, right? Obviously, not specific to any industry. Broadly, what are you seeing um, happening inside of the different mediums? Right? Because, like you said, print. It's almost hard to even say it anymore. Because, like, what's print? Right?
Yeah.
Like, unless you're, I'm like, what is print? It just the New York Times isn't read in paper anymore. It's read online, right? On your
Right.
phone. So for print, but like I've been pushing agents, for instance. It's not just because it was LinkedIn, generically LinkedIn and Facebook, right? You're an insurance
Mhm.
agent. You go onto LinkedIn, you go onto Facebook, you create a business account, right? And you're on it every day, right? You have to post pertinent content, make people, intrigue people, type of thing, and it works. I've done it with great success. I invest a lot of time into it, but outside of the Facebooks and the TikToks or the Facebooks in the marketplace, more like I just kind of Freudian slipped it, but TikTok. Um, what are you seeing there? Like, are you seeing people, or are you seeing the ability? I guess is a better way to put it, to find a viable avenue to market inside of places like TikTok? Because before it's a kids thing, right? You do some stupid video that my kids are in my face constantly when they were little, like, look at that, look at me, singing this song, and all of a sudden there's like an F-bomb in it, and I'm like, oh my god, what are my kids doing? But now it seems like I have adult agents that are literally creating TikTok videos as a means of marketing. Do you think that that's viable? That there's a place for that generally at this point, or am I getting ahead of myself that that's not there?
So, funnily enough, Danny, I think the first time I saw TikTok was when I met you, and the
My,
kids were like going nuts over it, doing their videos and applying the filters, and I'm like, what is this? And why are they? I mean, I've never seen kids so engrossed in something. Um, like it had to have been an hour that we were chatting, and the kids never left the app, and I was like, oh my god, this thing is crazy. um I not I've seen a lot over the last 20 some odd years that I've been in the industry, and I'll say that there are a couple things that I think are going to change pretty quickly. So when I started out, the industry was fairly straightforward. You go to a website. If you remember, like back in the day, there was a search engine called Alta Vista, right? Like this was pre-Google, and that's sort of like the beginning of showing the display ads on the search engine, showing you specific customized ads based on the keywords that you typed in. And
and that's where the whole
fast
keyword phrases came from, right? That's why.
Yes, totally, totally. And I believe that over the last, let's say, 15 years, up until there are two things that I think really changed the game. And between the days of Alta Vista to one, the growth of Facebook as a platform, and then the introduction of the iPhone. Everyone has basically computing power in their back pocket, as well as a means of communicating with uh, the advertisers, or the advertisers reaching you like on your phone, right? Like It could track your movements. It knows what you're looking for. It could scan your apps. I mean,
Cliche, right? Everybody says, "Oh my God," I say Honda Civic, and the next thing I know, I pick up my phone, and it doesn't make a difference if I open up a news application or Facebook. There's Honda Civics all over the place. It's crazy.
yep. Yeah. Which, I would talk to people and they're like, why am I getting these ads when I didn't do a search for something like this, but I did, maybe I did something else. And, the average person just doesn't know, right? Like, but from an advertising technology perspective, I'm like, hey, these are the things that they're collecting about you as a person. And this is how they're actually generating revenue. Because the idea that you can use an app for free if you're not paying for it or paying for premium services or products inside the app, that free product or free app or free content is not free. You are the product, right?
Yeah.
So how does an advertiser identify you as a product? So if I said, as an advertiser, I want to reach men of a certain age who live on the East Coast, and let's narrow it down to tri-state area, and they have they have a family and they're in the market for homeowners insurance. There's a difference between targeting people who are just looking for homeowners insurance versus what I just said that gets more specific about, let's say, head of households with 5 people in them living in the tri-state area. Okay, that's a different level of specificity. Now it gets to the point where it's like, I want Danny. I'm going to target this ad to Danny
Yeah.
because I know so much about you, and I know that you're even thinking about purchasing homeowners insurance. And further, it might know that you live in a flood zone, right? So, hell, I'm going to send you some ads for flood insurance. So between the days of Alta Vista to the time when we've got Facebook and the introduction of the iPhone, that's the level of detail that gets offered to advertisers to target consumers. And you had a question earlier about where things are going next. And this is where I kind of have this my consumer hat and then my advertiser hat on. We've got these privacy policies coming, and they're all over the world. They're implemented in some places, and it differs from region to region. GDPR in Europe is pretty much out there, and I would say like most of the players are addressing it somehow. Apple already has rolled out their privacy friendly regulations and restrictions. So, what these things do are basically mask certain types of data that advertisers can use to target you as a customer. The next kind of like imminent event is going to be when Google deprecates their targeting capabilities inside of the Chrome browser. So, it's creating upheaval, quiet upheaval in the advertising space. And there's a scramble to figure out like what to do next.
And why do you think that Google's doing it? Just so that they can completely monopolize the marketplace generally, right? Be the only game in town. Why are they what's the end game there for them, do you think? And again, this is obviously all hypothetical. Like we don't know what Google's necessarily thinking, but why do because like I'm thinking of in terms of Snapchat, for instance, right? My kid, like, there's no such thing as texting anymore. So, like, my brain immediately is going to how do I? Because my daughter's about to get her driver's license, right? I had to take her to get her vision. I know it's so scary, right? Matilda, right? Last time you saw her, she was in Maine. We were she was on her phone, like you said. She's driving now. So,
oh my, you're gonna give me more of these. I can't, like that. The math is like
I'm
no.
there. I'm there. But
Wow.
but I like my brain is totally in a place where I'm like, okay, how do I figure out how to leverage Snapchat from a marketing standpoint? Because that's how they're going to. I don't see that ending, right? These kids aren't texting anymore into their 20s when they are the purchasing power of this nation, right? When they all of a sudden become the predominant kind of source of money, they're the ones buying the cars and the houses and the food and the products. When there are those people, they're still going to be using some sort of weird technology. It's just the way they were raised. We need to figure out how to access it. And you're telling me, and I might be completely off base, but you're telling me that like, the Google's basically kind of trying to backdoor all of us at a level, yes or no?
I wouldn't say backdoor, at least for in this context, but I would say that one, Google has to do something because by law in the United States and overseas, they have to comply with privacy laws because there there are there are pieces of data that they are now mining in order to reach you, and it gets pretty specific with up to the point of personally identifiable information. So they don't know your, your personal uh, things like social security, or in some cases, yes, they'll know your Gmail. And
Right.
by the way, they are, you know, they have access to that as well.
Yeah.
But
So this is actually
I
a protection for us. I hear Google. I'm like, big bad man. They're doing bad things. Then you're talking about something to protect us that Google's doing, and it's pissing off the marketplace because now it's hindering their ability to data mine.
Well, I wouldn't say that Google is doing this of their own volition. It's being forced upon the whole industry. And that's kind of the interesting thing, is that while I think each of the tech players who basically operate, what we'll call a walled garden, the insiders in the ad tech space and just tech space in general, you know what that is. But you generally own the ecosystem. So a party like Facebook or TikTok or Google, for that matter, they own the infrastructure, they own the data, they might even own the devices, right? So, Google's got Android phones, Apple has the iPhone. They own that ecosystem. And that means they own everything inside of it, and they make the rules. The thing is, globally, there has been a significant push because of numerous reasons, but have been some data breaches. There have been some abuse of data over the last many years, and it finally caught the attention of regulators and legislatures, around the world. This is not just something happening in the United States. The foremost of it is happening in Europe and in the U.S., but now they're putting in regulations that actually draw some clearer lines around what you could do and how you can do it as it relates to consumer data. The big thing is something called cookies, and in the Apple ecosystem, it's an Apple identifier that's specific to them. But I wouldn't say. I would say these are sort of exogenous forces to each one of those platforms that is forcing them to take action, as opposed to letting them self-regulate and self-police.
Because that works never.
Right, right, yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, self-regulation basically just means evil makes friends with evil, and they're just evil together.
yeah, yeah.
Funny. Well, and where do you foresee us? And I'm not even talking 10 years down the road. We're moving so fast. It used to be, right? You hear about something and like it took time to gain momentum, traction, whatever else. And then it was eventually a reality. I feel like I'm barely hearing about something, and the next thing I know, it's like forced upon me, right? Like Microsoft Teams, like all it was that type of thing was a whisper, and then like you're not allowed to talk outside of Teams, right? Like that's the only place we talk. No more phone calls, right?
Right.
So, what do you see uh, with this type of transition? Because data is everything, like you've already said. So we're taking that data away. What does that mean for us? As I'm Renegade Insurance. We're trying to speak to our consumer, or we're trying to gather data that's going to allow us to understand how to speak to our consumer. What is this going to do to our abilities there?
So the first thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have to think more and more deeply and more broadly about your consumer. I think the walled gardens, like a Facebook, like a Google, they were already starting to dominate the space and taking advertising share away from, other sources like, let's say, the Wall Street Journal, or the news sites, or just general content sites that you might be visiting. But these big behemoths versus, I don't want to say little guy, because I mean NBC is not a little guy, but
Right.
they struggle with the same issues. The race is going to be on to know your customer, and I think this is going to be happening from both the advertiser perspective as well as those who are creating content outside of the walled gardens. And honestly, if I had an answer for what that magic pill is going to be, I would be living on a private island
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say that this is probably going to be the most disruptive phenomenon for the industry. I mean, to me, it's almost like we're turning the clock back to
I was just going to say we're going back to Don Draper, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
really what you
yeah,
just said. Having to use your own brain and not the AI to kind of like diagnose your consumer at a level. So it's like it literally my brain right where you wanted it to, right to Don Draper, right? Uh, and,
yeah.
and coming up with that Kodak moment that's gonna spark that emotion. Very interesting. Now, along those lines, and I know people are going to be like, I can't believe you're talking about it, but like I'm talking to agents. My cousin works for Allstate, and one of the agents that he's working with is just bought space in the metaverse, bought an office inside the meta. So,
Yeah.
and now obviously, again, this is speaking to the point that I just made. Like, how do we go from freaking Ready Player One, and 2 years later, people are buying freaking space in the meta? Like, oh my God, the idea that I'm going to meet someone with my avatar inside, like, holy cow. I love it, by the way. I think it's really neato because so much of our human interaction has been taken from us, and not just COVID. People in general. I mean, people try to blame everything on COVID. I think it's total bullshit. Excuse my language, but everything's blamed on COVID anymore. Half of our trends were trends well before COVID hit. Did COVID accelerate a lot of the things that we were already kind of thinking about or steering towards? 100% it accelerated it, but this was all here before that. So like, where do you like, what do you like, you see that? Are you and I going to have this podcast inside the metaverse next time? You know what I mean? Our avatar is going to be talking to everybody. Like, what are we doing here? What do you feel about that? I know we're speaking philosophically and hypothetically. What, like, personally, what do you see it all? Where do you see it all going?
I love it. I mean, I love this conversation. It's both like exciting and scary at the same time.
Totally.
But I think the notion of the metaverse, I think, it's been around for a long time. And if anybody out there plays like role playing games online, or wherever you're playing role playing games that are totally immersive, and you're in a world building environment, that's a version of the metaverse, but it might be just more sort of a self-contained version of it. And then once you start getting into things like, having a Zoom meeting, or having virtual experiences, like, I would say like 100% of my consulting business and experiences have been over Zoom, which is crazy because I used to fly all over the place to meet with my clients, but I've been able to continue doing what I've been doing over video. And it's been an indispensable part of my communication with collaborators and with clients. And then I know John might chuckle at this, and I think the folks at Maxim would appreciate this, but there is or was this thing called Second Life, which was a virtual environment where you can have an avatar and have a full life experience to whatever extent you could back in the early aughts. That was what I see as an early version of the metaverse. But
Or
to your point,
Minecraft, I guess. You just
yes,
made me think of Minecraft because my kids, or my son rather, my daughter makes fun of my son for it, but my son has created a home, an entire world inside of Minecraft that he exists inside of with his friends, and they're
Yes.
constantly breaking into each other's houses and stealing stuff, right? Burning each other's houses down. They
Oh
burn each
no.
other's freaking houses down. I was like throwing rocks at my friends and stuff when I was mad at them. Now my kid's going into their home inside of a fake universe and burning it down. It's crazy. It's just crazy. Sorry, go ahead though.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the pandemic did pull forward all of these trends. I totally agree with you there. And they existed before the pandemic, but I think, the past 2 years have accelerated virtual experiences significantly. Not only has it become part of our regular vernacular, I mean, kudos to the big Facebook machine
Right.
for grabbing the Meta name, but they have added it to everybody's vernacular overnight, and now it's a thing. It's acceptable, and it's also possible, right? So I do think, yes, at some point we as humans will be living part, if not all, of our lives somehow in the metaverse, conducting business, social interaction. It's just another layer of engagement. Right or wrong, I'm not going to make a judgment call on that, but
It's too early too, right? We don't know. We haven't fully wrapped our hands around it.
yeah, I mean, getting back to philosophical, like just, what does human interaction mean? I think is going to be the big question mark, because I even look at things like Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snap. What does that human interaction mean? What does it mean when you push a statement out into the world, or a meme or a video, and it's just one person blasting it out to a lot of people without actually like saying it personally to somebody, and then having that interactive feedback. One thing that I appreciate about being able to conduct business over video is that I prefer to have a video chat. I'd rather do that than even have a phone call, unless it's someone I really, really know super, super well. And I would like to put a name and a face together. And I would like to be able to see how that person is responding to what I'm saying, or how they're, be able to respond in my way so that they can read me, right? There's something to be said for just being able to see the other person when you put something out into the world or say something.
Well,
Um,
because I know in my business, and the reason why this is so interesting to me and why I love the evolution at a level, because so much is even lost here with you and I feel like people's physical being. Uh, there's certain tells. It's like playing poker. Life is like
totally.
one big poker match, right? And how you're blinking, right? Your head gestures, your body movements. There's so much more to people than just what they say, right?
Yeah.
And how often have you? I know me personally, I have so many regrets in life, and I don't actually mean that. I have very few. My regrets have been, man, I shouldn't have written that. Right? Like I can't get that back. I'm like trying to pull it back. Like, God damn it, I can't believe I just said that. I shouldn't have said it. And you don't think about it until afterwards. And the reason why I was upset was not because I didn't mean what I said, but there was so much lost in it. I just, after I pressed send, I realized, man, I should have backed that up with a preface, or I should have I should have done something more than I did. And I know that person's now going to read that, and I literally just shot myself in the foot, because they're not going to interpret it the way I meant it. We do that all the time. And that's why this is so important. I need to look you in the eyes. I need to know who you are. So this technology trends, I like how I hated how we went in, and I like how we're coming out of it at a level. I actually like the meta, because at least I could see how you're moving. You know what I mean? I could see if your head's down. I could see you turn up and left or up and right. Like, I don't know which one says I'm lying. I might lie all the time, or at least throw that signal out. It's just because I'm twitchy, but who knows? But you get my point.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's something to be said, and this is going to make me sound so old school, but I mean, looking at people and how they're reacting or interacting is pretty significant. I mean, there's a big difference between even sending an email, and it's, depending on what kind of information you're sharing, and how you're stating it. Um, you don't know how it's going to land with the other party. But how many times have you, I mean, we've all been through this. Like, you draft an email with like 3 paragraphs in it, which probably could have been taken care of with like a 5-minute chat,
Yeah.
right? So I think there is a layer of nuance that the meta experience, or the metaverse experience, is going to provide. um, but I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm hoping that it helps with communication and
Yeah.
human interaction, as opposed to uh, being dominated and being owned by the parties who own the platform.
It's funny because this pulls right back to something I've been saying to all of my potential agents, and really all of our, really everybody who's buying insurance, generally speaking. In my industry, people hear the word tech, or technology rollout, or IT, or anytime they hear it, they cringe, right? They associate it with a poorly produced product, and an even worse rollout, right? But in truth, nowadays technology, at least the technology that we're providing our agents, and ultimately our industry, and really the stuff that Renegade's pioneering generally, is designed to actually enhance what we're talking about here. I think too many people are focused on the automation, uh, as far as this type of dialogue. The automation that we're creating in the insurance industry is designed to kind of perform the menial tasks that humans don't need to be a party to, allowing that they can spend more time inside of that human interaction. So that technology doesn't have to be the end of humanity, right? Like peaceful and normal social dialogue, right? It doesn't have to be the end of it. It can actually enhance it if we do it right. Right, the metaverse doesn't, like you said, cautiously optimistic. It doesn't have to be the end of this good dialogue. Jen and Danny smiling, like looking at each other, right? Like having a good conversation. It could actually be enhanced by it, because instead of me having to do all this stuff behind the scenes, I you know the AI is doing that, right? I now get to spend more time with the people in my life, and from a business standpoint, that directly for me, it's like the more you're inside of that sale or that sales process, the more you're inside of that marketing process, the better you're going to do from a business standpoint. And the only way for us to achieve that is to embrace the technology that we've got and employ it in the right areas. Though I don't want the AI to have the conversation for me. I want it to free me up to have the conversation. I think that gets lost on a lot of people, and they're afraid of technology because they think it's going to rule everything. And at a level, it is, right. There's stuff happening that we don't like, and it's absolutely negatively impacting our society. But there's also a lot that's happening that's going to enable us to come together as a society, in different ways that we ever have, or maybe even enhance our abilities to do so. So, very interesting stuff in any event.
Yeah, I love the idea of leveraging technology as an enhancement, right? Like, it's one thing to say that the technology is doing its AI magic to tell me which car to buy or which insurance to purchase. But as long as I, as a consumer, this is me putting on the civilian hat, taking off my business hat, but I want as much information as I want. And am I getting the full breadth and depth of that information when I do my research? Or am I only seeing a small portion of it because the platform is telling me what to buy, because an advertiser paid a premium to reach me? So, I think that's kind of the fine line that we have to walk, both as private citizens and people in the world, as well as business people. So yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting and find balance to strike.
And something that we're trying to find. That's something I already said that that's what we do. That's something that we're trying to do as a company. Generally, Renegade is we're really trying to embrace the technology, but in a way that enhances, not takes away the human element. So many of our competitors, and I get it, right? The consumers changed, and they don't want or need the same interaction from us, right? They're capable of going online in the application and getting their own ID card. They don't need to call us for it anymore. And that's great, right? Because it's freed us up in that respect as well. But at the end of the day, if you're free from that, then you should then be engaging more, right? Just because that's gone now, it's not one off your plate. Now I'm done for the day. It's all right. That's taken care of. Now I'm here able to do this. That's really what we've tried to do with our technology and our platform is create a circumstance where we've created more time for our agents to be inside of that sale, inside of that marketplace. And I'm loving watching. I love being a part of it because my industry is so old and freaking dry and painful, you know. And Renegade just isn't, right? Like it's that bright shiny thing that everybody talked about right now, and so I love it. And along those lines, because we're running out of time here, who knew that we'd get through that so fast? But I typically try to, but I fail at it often. I always like to ask, like, so who's your insurance with? Give me for all the insurance agents that are listening, obviously you've just given us so much fun stuff to think about generally, and ultimately how to play that against our lives as insurance men and women. But give us a good experience and a bad experience with insurance, and what you think about us generally speaking, so everybody knows what you think.
Yeah, so I have to tell you that I do my research online as much as I can. And then the big thing for me is word of mouth, because when I have to call on that policy to actually service a problem, I want to know, I mean, knock on wood, hopefully there's not a reason to, call on it, but I want reliability. I want speed. I want to make sure that I'm getting the best service I possibly can. So the first thing I did was go online and do as much research as I could. And then the second thing was word of mouth. Who are the people in my life that I trust their judgment? They probably are pretty aligned with the same kind of priorities, the same kind of like financial considerations. And I just simply asked, who do you use?
All right.
And that was how I went about selecting both my automotive as well as the coverage I have for where I live.
Well, okay, because I mean that's our we love referrals. It's just the best piece of business. When someone's calling you, it's always a win, right? Because especially when you're an independent agent like we are, it's I've got 20, 30, 40, in our case over 100 different companies that we represent. So
Mm-hmm.
I need the engagement. Once I have that, it's kind of it's a done deal, right? Our agents are lucky like that. They close 70% of what they quote because we've got such an
Wow.
expansive. Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Inside of all this also is marketplace, right? There's
Mhm.
every industry on the planet wishes it had a 70% close ratio, and that's literally what our agents have, a 70%.
Wow.
But crazy, right?
It is crazy. That's crazy.
Well, that only in the independent channel though, the captive channel. So the State Farms, the All States, you're a rock star if you have a 20% close ratio. And,
Yeah.
and we're talking about the exact same product, just who's selling it in what format, right? State Farm's captive, they only sell State Farm products. I'm an independent agent, so I sell multiple companies' products. So, but when you're selling State Farm's products, you literally have a 20% close ratio. When you're selling my products, you have a 70% close ratio.
That's incredible.
Same industry, same product, same guidelines, everything. But one's a 70 and one's 20. Crazy. But in any event, well, I can't thank you enough. Anything you want to say in parting? And again, thank you. Everything was so nice. Awesome information.
No, I appreciate you having me on, Danny. And I mean, I'm always game for having philosophical conversations about this because I can tell you, I spent a lot of time thinking about this as a consumer and as a business person. And it's exciting. It's incredible to see where we've come from, like these crazy desktop computers that weighed like 25 pounds all the way to, these smartphones that have like incredible processing power.
My first
So
computer was an Apple IIc. It was a hand-me-down from my father's office.
I have a
right?
2E. I
Did you
have a
have a 2E?
2E.
Apple
Yes.
2C. And the best part about it was playing Conan. And I remember all I wanted my dad was to buy me a joystick for so I could play Conan. But my Apple 2C and my Conan, I was very bad at it. I still am very bad
That's
at video
awesome.
games. But well,
Incredible.
maybe next time we can get John on the horn. I doubt it, but it'd be really nice the three of us. We could get in trouble, the three of us talking. That's for sure. So.
Oh, that would be very interesting. And I mean, hats off to you if you can make that happen.
Well, I might be getting him this weekend, so if I do, I'll make effort. So, well,
That's awesome.
an absolute pleasure. Everybody, tune in 2 weeks. We've got another show for you. I'll be announcing the special guest and the content, but great thanks to Jen. We are just so happy with the information that you provided us. So, thank you, and hopefully I see you sooner or later. Though you're moving to San Fran, aren't you?
I'm moving back west.
All
So
right.
yeah, but I mean, I've still got several months ahead of me, and there's a strong chance I'll be on the East Coast sometime. But
Oh, if
yeah,
you're on the East Coast, party at my house.
I appreciate
All
it.
righty. Take care, Jen.
Cheers. Take
Cheers.
care.
Bye now.
Bye.